And we are here today to talk to you from Fortuna Admissions. Hi, everyone. I think I might have gotten cut off at the intro, but I'm Rachel Erickson-He, and this is Michelle Belden. And we are here today to talk about applying in round two, both the realities of applying in round two to the M7 schools, and then taking you through the specifics of each school and some tips and advice for how to really stand out in this very competitive and crowded application round. Michelle is going to start the presentation, giving us a little bit of an intro on these M7 schools and how to ace your applications.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Welcome, everyone. And we are going to have a Q&A at the end, so please post your questions for us. So round two, here we are going to look at the M7s. So let's go. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to click to the next slide. Here we go. So again, I'm Michelle Belden. Just quickly, I'm a former Associate Director of Admissions at Wharton. And then Rachel, a quick intro.
Yeah, so I'm a Stanford GSB myself, and then I was also a GSB admissions interviewer for about 20 years before starting to work at Fortuna.
Great. And here's our agenda. We're excited to go through, and it'll be a little quick, but again, we want to leave time at the end, but to really kind of hone in on, what are the M7s looking for? What are the realities of this round two this year? And then going through a quick snapshot of each of the schools. What do they look for? How do you tackle their application, their essays? Letters of recommendation, we'll do a quick touch point on that. And as you're thinking about who are the right people to ask to write my letters of recommendation. And then finally, we'll end with some just common round two pitfalls, what to be aware of. It's great to have you all joining us today. We're mid-October, getting a little later October, so you're all in a good timeline to really begin this process if you haven't already. So hopefully we can kind of help as you are looking to apply round two. So I'm going to start us off here. And what are the M7s looking for? I mean, right. And we all are thinking about, as I approach who I am, what have I done? What should I really be presenting, through the application? And so first, I just want to kind of start with leadership, and showcasing your leadership is obviously something that is, a key component of the application. And it's really leadership beyond the titles, right? So they are really looking to see how have you influenced people? And if you've had a formal role, how have you gone about that? So you really want to highlight within the roles you've had, taking, that position, what impact have you made? Have you been results driven, and what does that look like? If you're able to quantify that impact, through the resume, if it's in an essay, the data forms, and really giving concrete examples. It's really to look how you demonstrate the different abilities within your leadership style, resilience, problem solving, collaboration. So leadership is, the first component you want to think about, and how is that, come to play in your background. Next would be the academic readiness. So they are across all these schools looking for people that are going to be prepared to take on the rigor of each of these programs. And really it's the quantitative piece of that, and how they are going to be able to really, understand what that looks like for you, and is looking at your undergraduate institution, your degree, what classes did you take, how well did you do? And obviously the other component will be the test. So if you've chosen to do the GRE or the GMAT, and looking at each of these schools' profiles, what is their, range, what are students that are being admitted scoring, and just taking that into consideration as you are looking at your academic profile. Next would be authenticity. This one I think is really important. And I think this is where you are right now to start this, your, reflection of what have you done, what have you enjoyed, what are you good at, and where do you see yourself going? I think how you bring that self-awareness to the application is key to tell your story. And your story is really, the why behind what you want to do, what is the purpose, the leader you want to become, and the impact you hope to make. And really to present that with, again, we say humility, but authenticity is really what's going to connect with the admissions offices and the readers of the applications. Along with that would be your interpersonal skills. So they are definitely looking for your technical skills, your hard skills, but as well as teamwork, your EQs. How do you show up in a room? What is your presence? How do you read others and respond to that? Are you adaptable? And your communication skills. And that's something that definitely will come into play, first through essays and the applications. Some of the schools, many of the schools have video components now to their applications, as well as when you get to the interview as well. And then finally, I would say is the vision you have, which I've mentioned, is what is your story, but where are you headed? Is it both ambitious and realistic? Mission driven is in the sense of what do you hope to be? What problems are you hoping to help solve? What impact do you hope to make? What do you see that's going on within the industry that you're focused on? And what does that look like? And what role will you play in that? So I think thinking about how what the story is that you want to tell. So that's kind of hopefully a quick overview of just what the M7s are looking for. And now we're going to Rachel's going to talk us about the realities of round 2 specifically.
Sure. So when you go into round 2, it is important to know, first of all, that this is the biggest round. And there's a number of reasons for this. You have the people who have always wanted to apply in round 2. And then you have people, though, who maybe they were planning on applying in round 1, but they didn't get the GMAT or GRE score that they were targeting. Maybe they were waiting because they found out they were going to get a promotion at work, and they wanted to have that on their resume when they applied. And you also have some people who maybe applied to 1 or 2 schools in round 1, but now they're targeting a broader segment of the M7. And then, of course, you have the people whose plans change at the last minute and decide to throw in an application to business school. So it means that there is both a lot of people who apply in round 2, but also a wide variety of the range of types of people who apply in round 2. However, this is not a cause for you to despair as a round 2 applicant. This is not round 3, where we really do caution people. You kind of have to thread the needle to get in. They are still very much holding a large percentage of their class to fill in round 2. This is where they have started to shape their class in round 1, but this is where they're really going to continue shaping their class and develop and finalize it. And this can mean that it either works for you or against you. So one of the things to keep in mind is that you are sort of effectively competing with those round 1 candidates in 2 different ways. The first is the people who've already been admitted. If you're applying as a consultant, for example, and they had a lot of great consultants in round 1, and they've already kind of over-admitted consultants, well, then you have to be better than the consultants that are already admitted, and better than the rest of the applicants in round 2, potentially, to get in. Like, you have to stand out among that applicant pool. And then you also need to know that you are still competing with the applicants who were deferred or waitlisted from round 1, because they do go back and they look at those applications and see how they stack up around 2. But the thing to keep in mind here is when they're looking at the deferred and waitlisted applicants, unlike the ones who have already been admitted, they are looking for which one is stronger. So if you're a stronger applicant than a round 1 applicant who's waitlisted, you're the one who's going to get in. So you do have those people you're competing against, but once again, if you're the strongest applicant, that is going to be what ends up mattering the most in the long run. And then finally, they're weighing fit and differentiation heavily in this round, because, as I mentioned, they are looking to shape the class. And just as it may sometimes work against you, it can sometimes work for you. Because, for example, let's say you come from a nonprofit background and they don't have a lot of nonprofit people in their class. Well, then they may be looking for your profile, and maybe somebody else isn't going to stand out because their profile isn't as differentiated. It isn't something the class needs. But if you do offer something that the class wants, that they're a little bit light on, then that can work in your favor. So don't think of round 2 as, oh no, I shouldn't apply in round 2. Think of it as you have still a really good shot of getting in if you're a strong applicant. You just maybe have a little bit less control in terms of whether or not you're going to get in. It's a little bit less of a blank slate, and you just need to know that whether you get in or don't get in is a little bit more about how you fit into the class as a whole and a little bit less just about your individual candidacy. So having kind of given you that background on what it's like, one other thing I wanted to mention is the other factor this year that is a little bit unclear is what's going to happen with the realities of schools in the US, with the realities of H-1B visas, international students, all of those other issues going on, is that there is a little bit more uncertainty perhaps around round two this year than there might have been in past years, which in my mind means that you should go ahead and apply, because that uncertainty can sometimes really work to your advantage. So just having said that, I'm going to now turn it over to Michelle, and we're going to start diving into some of the specifics of how to tackle these applications.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so I mean, there is a lot of uncertainty. Here you are, it's round two. And I think, again, we're just going to go over, high level of all the M7 schools. And it's really to think about, okay, this is what this school is looking for, how they want me to give evidence of X, Y, and Z. And it's really bringing your story. So at the end of the day for round two, it's how do you bring your strongest story to reveal who you are, your values, your attributes, etc. So let's go and tackle each of these schools. And first, we're going to start with HBS. So HBS, they are looking for a variety of experiences and perspectives. They now have 3 essays that they are asking you to answer. They are looking for the business-minded essay, which I will start with, because that's really going to focus on the choices you've made. And why have you made those choices? Why did you do what you did? And it's really, that's the evidence of being intentional with, staying at one company and really, your growth within that company and your role and responsibilities. Have your values guided you in your decisions you've made professionally? And again, that goes back to the self-awareness and being able to share that. This is really to understand, where are you pointed? Where are you headed? And they're definitely more interested in your past decisions and why you've made those to get you to where you are today. Next, I would say, I want to jump back up to the top, is leadership. So HBS is looking for your habits of leadership, your intellectual curiosity, and your community engagement. So the leadership essay is really, again, as we say, is to show how you invest and elevate others. This is really builds on one of the central tenets of HBS, and that's to educate leaders who make a difference in the world. So really think about, what is your strongest story where you can show how you've done this? How do you lead? And again, the main thing you also want to really keep in mind for all the essays, but the HBS in particular, is to show, not tell. So think about the story you want to use here and how to show how you have been a leader, how your leadership style came into play, etc. And then finally is their growth essay. And this is really to reveal, again, going to the intellectual curiosity, your inner learner. How have you really, embraced your curiosity and to discover new things, to seek out new ideas. And again, thinking about the best story example to use here and to give evidence of your curiosity. And the growth you've had, and how that's going to be a driving force in how you do everything you do and make the choices you make. So hopefully quickly, that's kind of an overview of the 3 essays, but also HBS is, they are a general management education. They are looking to build future business leaders. And so how you approach that application and the essays for their school. And then next, Rachel's going to go over now Stanford GSB.
Yeah, so Stanford is a really massive application. Unlike HBS, which is super short, sweet, to the point, Stanford wants to know everything about you. And I'm going to highlight a couple of things that sometimes trip people up. In the application, there are what we call 4 mini optional essays. And I say optional because most of the time when they say optional, they genuinely mean optional. In this case, they really don't. And we strongly encourage all applicants to answer these questions. The very first question on the Stanford essay is a question about your background. And My advice here is anyone can answer this because you can interpret background to mean whatever you want. It does not mean where are you from, your socioeconomic background, or your cultural identity. It could be something like when you were growing up and your family planned trips, everybody presented where they wanted to go, and you all debated until you agreed on a consensus. And maybe now that's how you go about working with your teams, is getting to that consensus that way. So interpret background loosely, but definitely take this opportunity to answer that question and share something about yourself. And then the next questions that they have are these 3 optional impact essays. And once again, Michelle mentioned how the first and foremost thing that business schools are looking for is your impact in the organizations and the communities that you have been part of. So this is really Stanford saying, show us your absolute best argument for why you are an amazing potential leader and when you've already had impact, and use those to really advocate for yourself for why you should go to this business school and why you would be a great applicant for the school. And then there's Stanford 2 main essays, which is where you're not supposed to talk about impact as much. You're really supposed to more share the personal side of you. The first question is, what matters most to you and why? And what I say here is the what is pretty universal. It's your community, it's your family, it's making a difference in the world, being the best you can be. These are all very universal themes, but the part that's unique is the why, and that really needs to capture your personality and who you are. And that's what's going to make that essay stand out among the others, as if it really captures the essence of you. And then finally, the Why Stanford essay, which is a career vision essay. And you're going to hear a lot of schools have these career vision essays, but each of them have their own particular slant on it. For Stanford, one of the important things to do here is to know that they don't want you to tell them, I'm excited to take such and such class where I'm going to learn this, this, and this, because they already know what the class teaches. What they want to learn about is you. And so the way I often recommend approaching these questions is starting with what it is that you need to learn and where you need to grow and why, based on your past experience and background. And then you just add the class at the end, and it shows, because you've explained what growth you need, that you understand you're going to learn that in that class without having to actually describe the class again. And that's one way, as you'll see Michelle talk about some of the next school, Wharton, that you can continue to communicate unique information about you within this essay.
Absolutely. We'll go to Wharton. I think the key piece, like Rachel is trying to say, is they know things about their school. So through all these schools, applications in a different way, depending on the essays, some have short answer questions within the essays, is to really reveal what it is you are seeking, right? And the fit with that school in terms of how it will benefit you. So being that specific. So now turning to Wharton, which is a very collaborative community, team-based. They have really focused their first 2, I will call them shorter questions, on your goals. And they are really looking for you to define very specifically your short-term and long-term goals. And really, again, like going back to HBS, they want to understand how your career has unfolded to date, and therefore how it's informed where you see yourself going. And it's really the main point I would say is why it matters to you. Why do you want to either continue the path you're on, if you're pivoting, taking the experiences you've had and the skills and knowledge you've gained and pivoting to another industry or specific area with those responsibilities, to really be able to articulate that in a clear and compelling way. So this is really key to, we call it your career vision, and to really be able to share that Wharton is asking you for this year with those goals questions. Now the main essay, which is 350 words, is really about your contribution. So this is where, like the Why Stanford, what are you looking to, bring and, really share, and how will you be a valued member of the Wharton community? So I always say, what is that unique energy, perspective that you'll bring that's going to enhance the the experience of your classmates. So again, really to be able to reflect and think personally, professionally, they say academically, what have you done? What's been meaningful to you? And how do you see yourself bringing that to a club, an organization? Contributing in a class with the professional career experience that you've had and what you've really seen, in the real world, as well as conferences, the Venture Lab. Wharton is a resources of the University of Pennsylvania. The ability to really take advantage of all those resources while you're at Wharton is the interdisciplinary opportunities. If that's something that really aligns with you as well, think about it in that way as well, with that lens, is how you're going to bring your experiences and background and really contribute in a specific way, the Venture Lab, whatever it is. And you are contributing again to the collaborative ethos that is the Wharton campus, and it's student run, student led. And again, think about your story and how in this, again, they're not giving you many opportunities, I will tell you, in the Wharton application, but this is your opportunity to tell them about impact that you have made, things that you have valued and you have really prioritized, and to show evidence and showcase how you've done that and how you're excited and how you have, done your homework and research and understand where and how you plan to bring that to the Wharton community as a student. Again, and both, I will end with this, for the 2 years while you're there, and like many of these schools, Wharton is very, it's important to them that you will be a lifelong learner. You will be a strong alumni. Their network is global, and how that, will really play out for you. So next, we're going to jump into Chicago Booth.
Yeah, I love Booth's application. I think it's a great, really interesting application to work on. And when you first look at it, the two questions, for the essay, there's a goals essay, and then there's an essay where you choose a photo. And these actually seem very similar to the Stanford essays, where it's, sort of the goals essay is your career vision essay, and then the photo essay is sort of about like, who are you? What are your personal values? Why is this meaningful? Why is this particular photo meaningful on a personal level to you? But I want to caution people, because I think people sometimes think, oh, this essay is going to be easy to tackle. But Stanford and Booth and all of these schools, each of them has a unique application. Each of them is asking for information in different ways and different places. The only thing that's common throughout all of these schools is that resume. And so you need to think about, how does your essay fit both with the questions that this school is asking, and with the rest of the application as a whole. So, Harvard, for example, in their business-minded essay, it's a career vision essay. They don't want to hear about, well, why do you want to go to Harvard and what are the classes you want to take here? Booth, on the other hand, does. But you also want to think about, are there stories about your work experience that maybe you want to intertwine into your goals essay to make it really meaningful and resonant for Booth? Same with that photo essay. Don't just take that Stanford What Matters Most essay, cross out what matters most, and think it's going to work. You have to think about, is there information and context that was in the background essay or in your Harvard Curiosity essay or in your Wharton community essay that should be here that isn't somewhere else? And if so, being really thoughtful about how you weave that information into the story, so that it really feels like you have tailored and crafted this application specifically for Booth. And then the other thing I'm going to say is, Booth it sounds great. They're like, no maximum word count, no text boxes, no cutoffs. And I just want to caution you that you still have to be really ruthless in your editing. We suggest no more than 500 to 700 words max, but the difference between 500 and 700 words should only be 700 words if every single one of those 700 words is really important and meaningful to your application. Just because there isn't a cutoff in terms of the words doesn't mean that you should be less rigorous and thoughtful about what you include, and make sure every sentence is building your story.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so we'll go to the other Chicago school. We'll look at Kellogg. So Kellogg also has 2 essays. And again, just actually like Booth, their first essay is kind of the why an MBA, why Kellogg. It actually has many components to the question, and they do give you a word limit, which is 450 words. So again, really being like Rachel just said, every sentence adds value. It's really building my story, and they are going to, understand what have I done? What do I want to do? And, why Kellogg, I intend to, contribute and really look at the words they use. They love the word, lifelong learner. So for them, this is really not, again, going back to work, not just the 2 years, but beyond, that you are going to keep learning and evolving and giving back. So keep that in mind as you approach the first essay. And again, this is, as they say, reflecting. So again, how has your past experiences really informed what you are motivated and want to do going forward? Telling them, as well as why now is the right time. They are still one of the schools that ask that piece of the question. So, why is the timing now right for you to step away and go to business school and invest for those 2 years that will really invest in your career professionally going forward in your trajectory. So that was essay 1. The essay 2 is the, behavioral question. Your past experiences are the best predictor of your future performance. They are looking for a story here about a difficult professional decision. And again, they're using what leadership values that have guided you. So really, again, we're thinking about what stories, what has your experience been to date? What is your strongest story that you can share and show, how you lead under pressure, how you were collaborative, did you show evidence of, inclusive leadership, and how did you go about solving this problem? What was the ultimate impact you made? What was the difficult decision, and how did you respond to it? And again, it's really, aligning yourself and understanding Kellogg's values. They used to use the word brave leadership in one of their essay prompts years ago. So they are looking for brave leaders. And again, and I think it's also to show your maturity and your understanding of, the self-awareness of reflecting what did I do? What was the problem on hand, and how did I go about? And really also to, specifically, understand and speak to what are your values. So, really to also understand, these are my values. This is what guided me. I'm a good listener. I, really, can work cross-functionally across teams, etc. So again, pointing these specific things out, and to kind of, piggyback on what Rachel was saying with Chicago Booth, all of the schools, it's a strategy, as you approach each of the applications, again, that you are strategically telling your story through the different ways that they are presenting an essay, the data forms, and how you kind of fit and really take advantage of all the ways to tell them who you are, what you've done, where you want to go. And the Kellogg specifically, is really, looking for where are you going, and then tell us about a time you did this. So it's kind of the combination to really get to know you better. So our next school Rachel's going to go over was a very different, is MIT Sloan.
Yeah, MIT is the outlier in terms of the applications because they have really different questions. First of all, the application form itself is super concise, and then you get to the additional pieces that they look for, and they're also really short and to the point. So for MIT, you have to go high level. Like, we've talked about telling stories. You don't really, except for one instance, you don't really get to tell stories with MIT. You kind of have to more get to the point. And the first element is this cover letter. And here they really are looking for a cover letter. They want you to make the argument for what you have done that is sort of, once again, it's your biggest accomplishments, but they want you to then tie them into like what you're going to bring to the MIT class, and then what you're going to bring to the larger, communities you're going to be in. So really focus on that accomplishment, sort of what you've done professionally that has stood out and shows your skills, your talents, and your abilities. The next thing is the video essay. This is 1 minute, and in 1 minute, you can actually say about 150 words, maybe 140, maybe 160, but the worst thing in the world to do is to try and cram a lot of information in here, because then you're not going to have the opportunity to let your personality show through. And it's much more important to have a natural, comfortable, conversational sounding video that communicates a little bit about who you are than to just try and throw a lot of information at them that they may not even be able to understand because you're speaking so quickly. So that's a key piece of advice there. And then finally, they do have a short essay. How has the world you come from shaped who you are today? And this is very similar to that Stanford background essay question. And once again, the way that you answer it can be anything. Your background and what has shaped you in the world literally can be whatever you want to share about yourself, and think about how that is going to allow you to benefit the Sloan community, and sort of keep that in the back of your head of who am I going to be in the Sloan community this way. So that's a little bit of a sense for what you're going to do to have to tackle for the MIT application to succeed in round 2. And now we're going to go, last but not least, Columbia Business School.
Yeah, so Columbia, to end with Columbia, a school I would say you really want to make sure you have done your homework on, because obviously they are located in a great city, and that really draws a lot of people to apply. So you need to really dig into their offerings, which is going to come into play in Essay 3 about how you plan to co-create your experience at CBS. But what they do start with, unlike other schools, is a 500-word essay that is just focused on you telling them about your career goals, your dream job. So this is really, I will say, if Columbia is one of your schools that you are going to plan to apply to round 2, it's a great one to start with, because you get 500 words to really, speak confidently, and you have the space to really build out your entire career vision. And I think it is nice. Some people also end with, pulling in and weaving in the Columbia piece, as we say, as the launch pad for this impact you hope to make. But they are definitely interested in, they tell you don't have to repeat your resume and what you've done. But I think the backstory, again, the context of, what have you done that's really prepared you and informed what is next, and then going into detail there. Their second essay is new this year. Again, it reflects their community and, their ethos on campus as collaboration and inclusion. So again, looking for one story to really tell them, how have you made a team more collaborative, inclusive, or cohesive? We really recommend using that STAR, approach to highlight, again, your EQs, your humility, your growth. It is a short essay. So again, every sentence is really adding value and showing, not telling them, how you collaborate or how you did this, but, what did you think about when you were doing this? Why did you approach it this way? So that is their second essay. And as I mentioned, the last essay is, really being able to speak to, again, as Rachel said, starting with what is it that you are seeking to learn, gain, enhance at business school, and how will you find those opportunities and therefore co-create the experience you plan to have through the Columbia Business School 2 years education. That's really going to shape who you become, therefore to, as that launching pad for your career, and to really, therefore identify a class, a club, again, an offering, a professor, a master class, a global, expedition, anything that really aligns with, your focus. So this is a very personal approach, but it is a very short essay. So you want to make sure you can hone in. Again, don't tell them what they do well or what they offer, but how you plan, how it will help you, and how you plan to take advantage of that and why it's important to you. So those are our quickly going over the M7s, the applications, what they're looking for. And I think Rachel, she's gonna quickly talk about, a piece of the application, which is a key component, are the letters of recommendation.
Yeah, so our first piece of advice, if you want to maximize your odds of getting in round 2, is choose your recommenders wisely. It is not about the title. It is not about who is important. It is about who knows your work well, who is going to advocate for you, and basically not just say how amazing you are, but be able to have specific examples and stories to back that up. The next thing is make sure to give people time. Round 2 is the deadlines are right around the holidays in a lot of countries, and you need to incorporate that into your planning, and you need to try and give your recommenders deadlines like December 22nd, for example, is a really good one, or December 20th, because you don't want them working on those applications while they're maybe at home on vacation with their family, celebrating New Year's Eve. You don't want them to have to be thinking about that. And then we very strongly recommend that you give your recommender a brief where you give them some context, you share some of your stories and your goals and explain some of the things that they might want to write about, but that you do this very lightly. You don't want to just tell them, here, write this, write this, write this. You want to give them talking points, but let their voice come through. And one of the ways to do this is often to ask questions, to say something like, I know we worked on such and such project together. Can you talk a bit about, some of the challenges that I had to overcome in order to get to the success? Can you describe some of the skills you think that made me successful when we were in negotiations with these people? So that you're pointing them towards the right direction, but without putting the words in their mouth. And that's one of the ways to talk about the recommendations.
Great. Okay, and we're going to end, I think this is our ending, common round 2 pitfalls, and you can chime in, Rachel, if you have any, but I think these are probably, we've touched on them already, and they're kind of straightforward, but first, let's say, submitting too many apps in a last-ditch effort. So again, if you're joining us today and we're just getting towards the end of October, you have time. But I think to really be mindful, maybe prioritize, okay, I want to apply to 4 to 6 schools, but let me prioritize them and work on one as I move to the next, and not feel rushed on all of them, because it will be very evident to the school. So really making sure you are putting, your full effort in and giving yourself the time to really develop your stories and work on the essays and iterate. And as well as the other components of the applications, HBS Stanford have, again, some optional or short answer questions that are also quite important, again, to build out your profile and your candidacy and tell them more about who you are. Secondly, if you have applied around 1 and you are adding some additional schools, don't just think, oh, this is no problem, I'm just going to go ahead and recycle those round 1 essays, which I think Rachel already really pointed out is as you work on just, let's say, M7 schools, you can't necessarily just use the Stanford, let's say, why Stanford essay and then go move to the Booth essay. I think there are definitely materials and the story you want to present are there. Like that is your real, foundation. But then it's really now bringing, okay, what is this school's essay asking for? And how can I bring that story, what I want to tell, and really, strategically, use it to answer the question that they're asking, and being, again, the word strategic of what they're looking for and how I can, share with them who I am and, and what I've done. And therefore it goes to the next one, which is the lack of tailoring to each school's culture and fit. Again, you're getting to the end of October. If you haven't already, really doing your research and outreach on the schools that you are planning to apply to and understanding the differences. What is their culture? What's their approach to academics, to picking your classes? Booth is a very flexible curriculum and choosing your classes, and understanding that before then you do approach each of the applications and the essays, because you do need to tailor them specifically to that school. And I think, again, don't be rushed, really plan out your time. Holidays do come into play. So make sure this is not something you're like, oh, when I, have some time at Thanksgiving and then at Christmas, I'm going to be able to get it done. I'm going to tell you, it takes time. And again, right now you have the time. You know, if you're starting out, even just with that outreach research and building your story and reflecting of what you've done, you're giving yourself the time to build those stories. And again, how you want to present your stories, the impact you've had, and where you're headed. And then finally, you know, Rachel started us off with really what is round two and what does it look like this year specifically. But it is a large pool of applicants. These are extremely competitive schools. So really, you know, you do want to differentiate yourself. You know, you want to, again, talk about, you know, the unique perspective you'll bring, the unique experiences you had, what have you learned, and therefore to differentiate yourself. And you can do that if you give yourself the time to plan and then approach each of the applications and the essays. Do you have anything to add quickly?
Yeah, you know, just to sort of back to that question of, well, when do you have the best odds of getting admitted? And we always say you have the best odds of getting admitted when you're submitting your strongest application. And I personally think you'd probably be better off submitting 3 really good applications than submitting 6 mediocre rushed applications that don't really have any depth of thought or, you know, add much to you. We see this often in round 2, where sometimes the applications are a little rushed and they do suffer in quality. And I think we would say that the applications that really stand out are the ones where people have spent the time and the care to make it really strong, really interesting, to highlight your work experience, you know, enjoyable to read, where the reader wants to get to know you, is excited about the possibility of having you in the class. And those are all of the things that you do both in round 2 and just universally to raise your odds of admission. But especially in round 2, if you have a thoughtful application, it gives you an edge over those people who are just throwing that in, you know, slapdash at the last minute, written in, you know, a day and a half without a lot of care and thought.
Yeah, and it's evident. I mean, it's definitely evident to the admissions readers, and because they want to see your excitement and your thoughtfulness of applying, and then their school specifically, you know, in terms of what they're asking, that you're going to come in again with a clear sense of purpose, and you're going to dive in and get engaged and contribute. And that's what business school is all about. And if you aren't showing that right now in the application, again, they probably have a lot of other essay applications they're going to read that, you know, are going to jump off the page and really, again, connect with them. And it is always leaving them, I like to say, and I think Rachel did, is they want to learn more about you. Let's interview this person. Let's talk to them more and, you know, and really get to understand, you know, their background and their viewpoints and what gets them excited and, you know, within, you know, professionally where they see themselves going. So that is all going to benefit you at the end of the day. And we are going to have some time now for questions, but just to end, you know, thank you for joining Fortuna today. We are a dream team. People work across all the top business schools. So please reach out for a free consultation. I think people truly speak highly of these, that, you know, that are truly beneficial to talk to us here at Fortuna, you know, as you are beginning to think about, you know, applying round 2 next year, whatever it is, that all of us just, you know, the depth of our background and you know, is really, hopefully helpful. And that's why we're here. I will now also probably end with, the people in the admissions offices are looking for ways to admit you. They are always approaching each application with that thoughtfulness that, again, they assume that you have put into it. And same here. I think that's why we all do what we do now. That used to be our job. Now we really want to help people, again, find, you know, that school that they can go and, you know, again, have the opportunity to their growth and, you know, professional, you know, catapult for, you know, their career going forward. But it's really, you know, open-mindedness and self-awareness and maturity. And we hope to start you and guide you in that process. And now we will have some Q&A. I don't know if we have any questions yet. Rachel, do you see any?
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay.
But, you know, if people have personal questions that maybe they're one-on-one and more individual, that's where that free consultation, the people who do them are really thoughtful, really knowledgeable, can give fantastic advice, whether it's, you know, about where to start in terms of studying for the GMAT or the GRE, or your particular profile and how that's going to stack up against other people at different schools. They really love getting to engage with with the people who are potentially applying to business school and being very thoughtful about the advice that they can provide about what makes most sense for you as a potential applicant. I'm just going to see if there's any last chance for questions, and if not, then maybe we should just, wrap it up. And feel free to reach out to us with any future questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to speak with you. And again, we thank everyone for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and we wish everyone good luck in round 2. And I think Rich would agree. The most important advice is tell your story, right?
Yes.
The whole, hopefully we got across that there's no magic like, oh, this is what, they want to hear. They want to hear who you are, where you've been, where are you headed. So just keep that in mind. So, and that's, again, goes back to really connecting with the reader when they get to hear your story and that you've put the time and thoughtfulness into it.
Yeah, 100%. It's about the only thing that you can do that's really unique on an application is show them who you are, because obviously you're a completely unique person, and that's the sort of the way to really stand out in this round 2 application pool.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.